What's going on, guys? It's Bill back with another video. Did you know that Rough Country makes winches? I actually did not know that, and I came across this while I was trying to do some research, trying to find like a around 9,000 pound winch for the tracker, and came across this 9,500 pound Rough Country one. Now, I don't have much information on it. If you go through forums asking about winches, looking for any information on winches, you're pretty much told you're a communist and you hate America if you buy anything other than a worn winch. But I looked at worn winches and they cost more than I've spent on this car. So I had a hard time spending that amount of money for a new winch for this. So saw Rough Country, it's a name I recognize, obviously. I don't recognize them for making winches though, but figured I'd give it a shot and see what it's like and let you guys know. Maybe it's worth the money, maybe it's not. I did get the synthetic line. I wanted to try to keep it as light as possible because, you know, this is not a super powerful car, and I didn't really need a huge winch on it, but you know, this thing, when I do take this off-road, it's going to have the potential to get pretty stuck, seeing as how it doesn't have a whole lot of power to get out of certain situations. So having a little winch on there give me some peace of mind. And like I said, I wasn't about to spend a couple of grand on one when I didn't even spend that on the car, really. So let's go ahead and dig into the box and see what we got. I got the box. Pretty self-explanatory. We got the winch. Got a manual. Got some cables. Got a hook. Some bolts. Pull this off. We've got more cables, which are connected. We've got the winch itself, and we've got a hand controller. And then the front plate. This seems pretty simple enough. Just gotta grab the winch, put it on the winch bumper, run some wires to the battery, and see what happens. We're just gonna sit this in here. There we go. Alright, so we just got it sitting on there now. Ran this power wire down. I'll have to run that back up into the engine bay to connect it to the battery. Remove this zip tie and pull the cable through. And that's pretty much what it's going to look like on there. Just got to get it all tightened down. So that's the end of the video. Nothing more to show you. Now, let me take a look at the instructions. There should be 4 bolts that are going to go up through the bottom of this plate here and into the winch itself to bolt that down to here, which should keep that secured. And we'll have 2 bolts to go in the front here. Alright, so the instruction manual here is more of an operator's manual. It doesn't give you much information about installing it. Like I said, it's pretty self-explanatory. You got 4 bolts that go through the bottom and will come up and into these feet to bolt this down. And then all the instructions say is run the red power to the power of the battery, and then hook up the ground wire. There's a small nut under here. put the ground wire on there, and run it to the negative of the battery. And that's pretty much all the instructions. Everything else you're just kind of left to figure out on your own. They probably have information on their website, but I mean, it all seems pretty self-explanatory as is. So we will go with that. So before I tighten anything down, let me go ahead, because that's going to be difficult to get to once that's done. So let me go ahead and hook this power or this ground wire up underneath, and we can go from there. And if I would have thought about it, I would have hooked this up before I set this winch in there. That would have made life even more easy. Alright, so I was thinking that the nuts are already built in here to these feet. They're not. We're given a bolt and a nut. So we have to take these nuts off and slide them in there. So there, just slide them in there, and then they should line up and we can put those bolts in there. So let me get all the nuts in there before I set this back down, and then we can do that. Alright, so I got those 4 nuts into the feet. And then I realized that I'm not going to be able to, if I put this down, I'm not going to be able to get to the bolts for here, which are just going to line up here like so, and then there's 2 more additional nuts with bolts in the container. These holes, I don't know if you can see them there, these holes are not going to be big enough for this hardware, so I'm going to have to drill those out a bit. Yeah, because I want to be able to get these bolts in there first before I drop this in there. Otherwise, I won't be able to get these bolts in there at all. Actually, I'm going to have to drill out these holes too. At the bottom of this tube, there's a hole that goes up, and then there's the other hole. So I either need longer one of these bolts, or I just have to drill out a bigger, larger hole at the bottom so these can go through to the top, which is what I'll probably do. So I got to do some drilling. Let me make these holes bigger. We'll get this on, and then let me figure out if I have some longer bolts there, or if I need to drill the rest of those out. Alright guys, so it's actually been a couple of days since I was last recording. Something that should have been a super simple job turned out to be take a couple extra days because I had to get some parts. But yeah, as far as getting the winch mounted down, got that all taken care of already. Before I tightened everything down for good though, I did run the wires back, and you see it's just the black and red wire. I still need to make sure they stay tied up, and then just running them to the battery. Before I actually tightened the bolts down on all this though, I did just touch the, set them up to see if the winch would work. With this battery, this old, it's not even the right size battery. It's like a go-kart battery that was in there. I mean, it worked for starting the car, but it definitely did not work for operating the winch. So I went ahead, had to order a new battery, and these, the clamps were pretty, as you see, if you see these battery terminals were pretty well shot anyway, so I had to order some of those. They did not keep stock this yellow top here locally, so I ended up having to order it from Amazon to get it here. But it's here, it fits. It's a little sketchy, especially around this ground. Yeah, I need to put some type of insulating mat up against there in case, there's any bouncing around or anything, that it doesn't hit the roof of this, but I've lowered it and looked and checked. It does have clearance there, but it still kind of sketches me out, so I do want to put some type of insulating material, you know, over the hood here, just to keep, you know, if there's anything bouncing around or something hits that you know, those battery terminals aren't hitting the roof. But finally got that all connected. I think we've got it all set up. Oh, one thing I forgot to put on there was the hook. Let's do that real quick. And it just has a cutter pin in it. Pull that out. Just pull that cutter pin out. Pull this pin out. And it should just go back on there like so. Alright, so we just got better pin in there. Bend that pin. That's all hooked up. We are good to go. I have the controller. You got in or out. Out. Not super fast, but does the trick. And when you're done, pull, oops, done. When you're done using the controller, just disconnect it, put the cap back on, and you're good to go. Obviously, you wouldn't leave it let it hang down like that. There are some hooks over here I can hook it to. But yeah, it's a pretty simple install, depending on what you're installing it on. I said this particular bumper was made for a winch. However, it wasn't made for this winch specifically, so I did have to widen some of those holes in order to get the mounts to work. But once I widened those holes, everything lined up and fell right into place. The wiring, super simple. It's just run the black and the red wire to the positive and negative of the battery, and that's pretty much it. It's simple installation. Took me way longer than it should have, just because I had to get the new battery and battery terminals and everything. I'm kind of curious how well this actually holds up. So I got a little test that I want to do. So let me go ahead and get set up for this little test that I want to try out, and we'll give it a shot and see what happens. Alright, so I got the tracker pulled out, and what I have here is this tree stump that is in the ground. It's got the winch disengaged, so we can just go ahead and pull that out. I'm gonna wrap this around. Alright, so we got the winch connected there, and here got the car turned on in gear. It's got the parking brake on. So the question is the tree going to give way? Is the tractor going to get pulled across the ground? Or is it just going to be a tug of war and absolutely nothing's going to happen? Or worst case scenario, something starts smoking or breaking or something like that. So I don't think that tree's going to have 9,500 pounds pressure. I could be wrong. So we'll just reconnect this. There's a flat spot. Right there. Alright, I'm going to stand up to the side. And get some tension. Yep. First thing you gotta do though, you gotta actually engage the winch. That helps. Alright, I got some tension on it. And we'll see what happens. Well, looks like they're both moving, but the tree is losing. The tree is definitely losing. I was a little worried for a second there because that started to pull the tracker a bit. I think if it wasn't on this little ledge, it may have started pulling it, or if it was on the wetter ground. It's freezing out, so the ground's pretty solid right now. But yeah, I pulled that up and out of the way, so I'm impressed. It's always bugged me being there because it's right in the way path of being able to pull straight through there, and now it's gone. Do have this other little stump here. Maybe we'll give that a shot and see what happens. I think that might just end up shattering before pulling out of the ground, but we got everything out here, so let's give it a shot and see what happens. There we go. Turn worked. Go ahead, release slack there. But yeah, obviously not the ultimate test for a winch that's meant to pull the tracker out of a stuck situation, but did help me pull this root out, which has been bugging me for a year or more. Anyway, yeah, I'll keep you guys updated to see how things go. Like I said, I didn't even know Rough Country made winches, but apparently they do. Seems to work pretty well. Hopefully I never actually do need it, but if I do, it's there. But I will do some more testing on it, put it through some torture tests, and try to drag the tracker, see how far I can drag it, stuff like that, using the winch. But overall, I'm impressed. Very simple installation. It's a whole lot more simple if you have the right battery that's going to work with it and everything. If you had a normal car battery, probably wouldn't be an issue. Probably don't need the Optima yellow top, but that's the biggest, most powerful one I could find that would fit inside of here, being such a small car. So that's what I ended up going with. It seems to be working great with it. The car didn't notice the engine doing anything or the electronics like dulling out when operating the winch with that battery in there, so I think that'll be a good fit. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something new. If you did, give me a thumbs up. If not, you can always hit that dislike button too. Either way, I hope you subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.